Hello and welcome to New Dad. This is Uncle Tickles. This is episode 6, and we are doing a listener mailbag. I know we had said in episode 5 that this would be a makeover / ultimate guide to being a zaddy, but due to some schedule conflicts, that'll be next week. And next week, it looks like we'll have 2 episodes for you. So a little special gift to all of Uncle Tickles' little children out there. This mailbag is something I wanted to do as part of our progress report, but we just ran out of time. The guests we had that day, Jess Schulman and Angela Wynn, were just too good, and I didn't want to cut anything short. So actually kind of fateful that we have this opening to do this today. We're going to have Prab Cause take us away, and we'll get to some of the questions I've been asked so far this first season. Prab, take us away. Welcome back. This is Uncle Tickles, and you are listening to the Mailbag episode. This is something I was hoping that would happen. I've been mentioning throughout episodes, you can email Uncle Tickles at newdadpod@gmail.com, and I would be doing a mailbag episode. As I said at the top of the show, we were hoping to do that in the progress report, but just ran out of time. So this is a collection of emails I've gotten starting around episode or the bonus episode, and have collected up until today. We've got a couple last minute ones that were submitted that we'll be using in the show. But without further ado, our first email from JT, caught at the 1-yard line in Delavan, Wisconsin. Interesting name there. Last episode, you talked about the first 2 weeks. How do you get a child to stop crying during that time? Well, JT, I don't have a magic solution for you. If I did, I'd probably be a lot richer than I am now. I can say in those first 2 weeks, and this isn't anything you won't read, in a million different places, but, most of the time a kid's crying because it, is hungry, it wants its diaper changed, or, it wants to be held. So typically those 3 things will solve any crying. But, it always is this dangerous game, right? Because it is really easy to let the kid lay on you, and most times, that will work. That will suffice. That will give the kid what it wants, and you will have a happy baby. But you do that too often, and then suddenly what you have is a baby who doesn't like to sleep in the bassinet. It's a baby who will only sleep, on you or on your partner, and that can be a tough habit to break. With Shep, we were pretty good about getting him in the bassinet. With Solo, I think we're even more conscious about it. So perhaps it seems like we're struggling a bit more because we're more apt to put him in there. But I can say this, I know we didn't talk about this in the first 2 weeks episode, and it was a total oversight on my side. Swaddling. There's a bunch of different swaddling products out there. I suggest, if you have the money, to get a couple different ones. They have the Velcro wraps, and then they have these ones that look like little starfish kind of deals, and eventually the baby grows out of all those, and you have to get a whole different set of like sleeveless sacks. But find out what works for your kid. And Adam Nation had suggested the Snooze bassinet, and I know that real hefty price point, but at a certain point, you can't put a price on your sleep and your peace of mind. So, it's kind of trial and error, to be honest. And there's going to be a lot of things that you might run into that you have no control over, whether it be stomach issues or health-related things that will create your baby to be a little bit more fussy. And that can be a trying thing for parents. But just try not to get too frustrated. And just know, babies cry. That's the one way they have of communicating things. So, if it happens a little bit, and it's going to, especially during changing or, when they're uncomfortable. So try not to get too rattled by it, and, just love on your baby. And over time, I think you're going to kind of figure out what those different cries mean. And even if you don't, you'll go through your series of checklists and eventually kind of get to a point where you're figuring those things out. So JT, I hope that helps. This is from Caston in Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you could wear one of those harnesses that stores breast milk and mimics breastfeeding, would you? That's a resounding hell yes. I am one that I am looking for every opportunity to bond with my children. There are certain things that as a father, I'll never be able to do. Breastfeeding is one of them. Birthing the children is another. Carrying them for 9 months is another. And I know a lot of times this is, men are looked at as kind of detached oafs that will never get it. And, we won't ever get a lot of that, and that's something that actually has been a thing I struggle with a little bit is as someone who cherishes life experience, knowing that that's an experience I'll never have, right? I'll never be able to birth a kid. It's just not in the cards for me. And I'm just never going to know that. And it's kind of a tough pill to swallow, even though it's a pretty traumatic and, really hard thing. I'm never going to do that. So I'll never know. So I would definitely wear a harness like that. I think that it can only help strengthen the bond between you and your son. I try to encourage my wife to allow me to do as many feedings as possible. She pumps and we put that in a bottle and I feed, and I really, chalk that up to the strong relationship I have with my son, Shep. I did a lot of that late night feedings with him, and he and I have a really, really good, close relationship right now. And I think, that it would be very different if I wasn't doing that, if I didn't take on a lot of the feedings that I did. So, yes, I would jump at the opportunity for something like that. Not only do I think it would look funny and ridiculous, but I think it would be a bonding experience. So for sure, Caston in Minneapolis. Gilgamesh in Crystal Lake asks, have you sensed any jealousy from Shep yet since you brought Solo home? No, I haven't. I think Solo and Shep have existed in perfect harmony so far. Shep's been an amazing big brother. He's helpful. He's inquisitive when he comes home from daycare. He wants to know where baby is. He kind of needs to, have an ocular pat down of where that baby is, whether it's in his bassinet or mom's holding him. And he's, just very gentle with him so far. So the closest thing to jealousy I've seen is if I'm holding Solo, Shep will want me to pick him up too. That's probably the closest thing to that. But other than that, so far, so good. I've been really proud and impressed with Shep. He's only 20 months old, but he's a fantastic older brother. It's been actually, I think I mentioned last week, it's been one of the coolest things to watch so far. That sounds like a shitty thing to say. One of the things that's coolest about Solo so far is watching Shep be a good brother. But, babies this early, they don't do a lot of cool stuff. So Dane, a very close friend from Greenville, South Carolina, asks, on a scale of 1 to Elmer's glue, how creamy are your butt cheeks? Well, I would say my butt cheeks are a swimming pool of Elmer's glue in an ocean of buttermilk. So that's off the charts, creamy. That would answer that question, Dane. I love and miss you, buddy. We'll be in Charleston in September, and hopefully we can see you then. Laura from Cleveland asks, how do you balance being a dad and having a life? I think that question actually connects into one aspect of the progress report episodes, which is that life balance. And so how do I do that? I've been trying to focus on, before Solo, making a very concerted effort to try to plan with my, my guy friends, when I can. And with all of them having kids and being spread out across the state and really, the United States as well, it makes planning those things hard, and it's kind of not getting too down when the plans don't come to fruition like I would like. And it's also kind of rolling with the punches when you have things that cancel last minute. So, but it is like, it's something that I have to exercise. It's a muscle I have to exercise, right? Because it's not something that's natural to me. So I have to make sure I'm constantly reaching out, constantly, throwing things out there and seeing just kind of what sticks against the wall. I am going to see a really, one of my best friends this Sunday. We're taking both of our oldest sons to see Nick Jr. So we'll see Bubble Guppies live. So that will be fun. It'll be the first time I've seen a buddy out of the house or out of a hospital in a while. So then there's things like my hobbies. So I've been taking drum lessons again. That helps a little bit. That gets me out of the house for 45 minutes and gets me just thinking about something not kid related and something that just benefits me really. And then there's things like, A Song of Ice and Fire. So ironically, that kind of leads us into our next two questions. So I think I'll cover that when I hit these. Stephanie from Norwood Park asked, what is A Song of Ice and Fire? Well, I think I mentioned it in one of the early episodes, but bears repeating. So A Song of Ice and Fire is the name for the books that served as the inspiration for the show Game of Thrones. So there's 5 books that are currently out, 2 planned. Who knows if there'll be more, but 2 more planned, and collectively they're known as the A Song of Ice and Fire. So Mismatched Eyes from Bravos, who must be an A Song of Ice and Fire fan herself, asks, how has A Song of Ice and Fire changed your life? Well, going back to Laura's question, it helps provide some balance. It also is something that I can do that's not, and how do I put this? When you watch TV, sometimes it can seem like a waste of time, right? Even reading books just on their own, I think some people could say, if I'm just sitting there reading the same fantasy novels over and over again, that's a waste of time, right? But what it's done is it's giving me this opportunity to, things like conventions and panels, which kind of make it serve a purpose or give it it's more than just reading a book. It's, interacting with the community. And Laura, who asked a question, has become a close friend. I have another really good friend, Scott Wortman, who's come about because of just talking about the books and hanging out at these conventions, and a host of other people. Just really a list too long to name everybody, but those 2 people really stand out as people I now talk to just about every other day. And it's not just about the books; it's about life. And we all have things in common, or we maybe things that aren't in common that we're able to help each other understand. When it comes to life. So it hasn't really changed my life in a way that it's brought me to meet new friends that I probably would have never met otherwise. That's probably the biggest example, but it's also given me, this added level of gratification in life, because I've never came across anything in TV or pop culture in general, music, that was this gratifying, that really kind of scratches all the different itches that I'm looking for when I'm consuming something like that. So I hope that answers that question. Mismatched Eyes from Bravos. This person, I'm assuming knows me very well. Will Jen Riches from Wonder Lake asked, which state has better jails, Nebraska or Wisconsin? So I didn't spend much time in Wisconsin jail, and I didn't ever make it out of the holding cell. So I feel like you have to spend some time in a cell block to really judge a state's jails. I will say the Wisconsin officers were much, much friendlier than any officers I encountered in Nebraska. And probably good reason for that too. So I will, for the sake of this question, I will say Wisconsin. Wisconsin is my choice. Gary Grimm from Chicago, Illinois asked, can you tell the story of when you first met last week's guest host, The Nation? Yeah, sure. I would love to tell this story. So our guest on our bonus episode, No Content, Jimmy Stabler, he's a friend of mine for, a while. We documented how we met. I was going out to a concert in Las Vegas, but flew out to LA and was staying with one of his friends whom I've never met, who turned out to be Nation, Adam May. So he was gracious enough to take me in, never knowing him. We took a road trip to LA, and we pre-gamed for the Vegas Music Festival at I think it was the MGM Grand Buffet, where they have like all you can drink mimosas. And long story short, he drank so many mimosas that he left, basically walked into the music festival as soon as it opened without hearing a note of music, turned around and left, and then proceeded to hallucinate from drinking so much champagne that we had gotten on a Jurassic Park roller coaster ride. And at some point, I had found a way to get off the roller coaster cart and ride the mechanical dinosaurs. And when he woke, he was mad. He was mad at me because he was holding a grudge because in this hallucination champagne state, I refused to reveal the secrets of how to ride these mechanical dinosaurs. So the first time I met Adam Nation, he actually hated me for something that didn't happen for a couple days, maybe even longer. We'll have to ask him how long he held that grudge. Secondary, while we're talking about this concert, there's a secondary story. So I had brought a hit of acid to the show, and just one hit. And on the way out of the cab to the entrance to the festival, somehow it fallen out of my pocket, or I dropped it, or whatever. It had gone missing. I had made this irrational attempt to just retrace my steps to see if I could find it. It was, we're talking about a tiny square of paper. The odds of finding it in this vast parking lot were slim to none. Literally like a needle in a haystack. And, sure enough, I found it as I had given up hope on the way back, brushed up against a curb. So I find it, going to the concert, I take it. And at a point, I had to just get away from everybody and go my own route. And I ended up in this air-conditioned small outdoor church. And I had sat there and watched people have these Vegas weddings, and it was Vegas over Halloween. So everyone's in these costumes. For someone on a mind-bending hallucinogen, it was everything I'd wanted. There's music in the background. Crazy costumes, like I said. The pastor was this outrageous person, and it was hot, and it was air conditioned in this church. So this was perfect. And at one point, it must have been like, they had a hard stop time when they had to stop doing these weddings, and the pastor walked off, and a bunch of people who were waiting to get married had started to kind of boo and make these, noises that made it very clear that they were unhappy that this was stopping. Their impression was that they were going to maybe stay open a little bit longer till you get the last couple people married. So in a very seamless, weird transition, as the pastor walked off the stage, I had slowly risen, walked past him, and then walked up onto the stage. And what hasn't been revealed in the story yet is I was wearing the outfit of a priest. I was wearing a priest outfit for Halloween that year. And I grabbed the mic, which was still hot, and I informed everyone that we weren't going to go anywhere till everyone got married, and then told the Willie Nelson impersonator off to the side of the stage to hit it. He didn't know what was going on. I think he thought maybe perhaps it was part of the show, and he starts playing You're Always on My Mind as one of the couples walks down. Now, the security was all on the sides of the stage at this point, but they didn't rush it. They actually allowed me to go through with this make-believe ceremony. So there was a couple out there that believes they're married by the state of Nevada, and they were married by me on a head full of acid. So that is also, I don't know if, I wanted to tell that story because I'm not sure if Gary Grimm is referring to that or if he's referring to Nation hallucinating from the champagne, but wanted to cover both bases with that story. So the next question, not parenting related. This is from Italian Meatball in Woodstock, Illinois. Not parenting related, but is it okay to date your ex's arch nemesis? This question was too juicy not to include. There were a bunch of bad questions, not bad, but unrelated questions that I just didn't include. But I did want to hit on this one. So I think there's a lot of context that we're missing that would really make or break my answer here. I'm going to assume that your ex is not sweet or somehow fucked you over. Otherwise, I don't think you'd even be considering this, because if you had any sort of amicable split, then I think the answer to this is no. You don't want to ruffle any feathers, and albeit, it's not your responsibility to rule out people to date just because you think someone you used to date would be displeased. If you have a friendship and they're an arch nemesis for a good reason, then I would say maybe find someone else. There's other fish in the sea. Now, if you guys had a more cantankerous split, and like I said, you felt jilted in any way and disrespected, and this ex's arch nemesis is, showing you interest, and you're interested in return, and that's genuine, and you're not doing it just for revenge or for any bad reasons. If you're genuinely interested in this girl, then I would say by all means I think you should go for it. So Italian Meatball, I hope that helps you. Adam Jenrick, who was on our Screen Time episode, asked he's a little salty, you might be able to tell from this question: what other names for future children are you considering whose nickname would double as an iconic Star Wars character of which you have no care about? Adam Jenrick is a giant Star Wars fan. We talk about it a little bit in that Screen Time episode. I think he's a little jealous that I have a son who will go by Solo. So to answer your question, Adam, I would say Jar Jar Binks is a nice unisex name. I think it could work for a daughter or a son. So, we're not going to retire Jar Jar Binks. And I've always been told I resemble Jabba the Hutt a little bit. So maybe Jabba. So Jabba and Jar Jar. I kind of like the full Jar Jar Binks, but Lena and I can talk about that later. Those are the two that we would consider. Hard Ab 69 from Chicago, Illinois asks, What is the first TV series not named in Game of Thrones that once age appropriate you are excited to share with your kids? Same question for movies. Well, that's awful nice that you think that I would wait for my children to be age appropriate to show something that I'm excited about. So I'm glad I've given off that vibe. I'm not sure that I'm going to wait till my kids are age appropriate. This is a tough one. I thought about this one a little bit. I think the cool answer is to say something like The Wire or Breaking Bad. How about someone who probably could have been included in our on-screen bad dads? How about the show Elf, which was one of my favorite shows as a kid growing up, and I haven't done a rewatch on it, but Willie from Elf, the dad there, perhaps an all-time bad dad, lets a cat-eating alien live in their garage, putting his family at risk from governmental entities. Not sure, but I'm going to say Elf for TV, just because I think it might be a fun one for me and Shep to watch. And then Solo, I think, would probably also enjoy it at some point. And then movies, I think it's True Romance. I think that's my favorite movie. Really look forward to seeing if that one is one that he enjoys when, and again, I'll probably turn it on to him when it's a little too early for most people to say age appropriate. Let's say 7th grade, I think that's when I saw it. But yeah, True Romance and then Elf. Those are my answers. Let's see here. We have Ryan from McHenry, Illinois, wants to know, what is my favorite meal to prepare for my kids? Well, Solo is just straight slanging that breast milk right now, so I like preparing bottles of breast milk for him. Shep, so Shep's gone through, in the beginning, when I say beginning, I would say from 4 months to maybe a year, he would eat anything we put in front of him. A little bit more picky. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he knows where the snack cabinet is now, and he knows how to manipulate his dad. So this is not a meal that I actually really prepare, but I would say pizza, just because Shep's love for pizza is as strong as anything I've seen. And when he sees pizza, he gets in a little pizza chant. So I'm going to say just seeing Shep enjoy pizza is probably the answer to that question. Rory Berg, who was on the baby name episode, asked, "What do you hope Shep's first memory will be?" And this was another tough one. I guess I hope that it is maybe McDonald's McNugget related, involving me, and lots of laughs and smiles. So, pretty generic, but you just want it to be a happy, positive memory. I know one of my first memories is having to go get stitches because I cut my finger trying to cut my own apple. Not a great early memory. So, I hope it's something very positive, and I hope it involves me. So, Craig Turlington asks, "What movie duo represents you and Shep best?" This one is another one I really put a lot of thought into. There is a movie based on a book called Freak the Mighty, and I believe the movie goes by the same name. This one kind of is what came to mind. The book has to do with basically a kid who is suffering from giantism. I don't know if it's actually giantism in the book, but for lack of a better term and lack of total recall, I'm gonna call it giantism. And then there's another kid who's he's very small for his age and sickly, and his legs don't work very well. And in the story, the freak is the smaller boy, and Mighty is the boy who's suffering from giantism. And they walk around where one is the smaller child just walks around on Mighty's shoulders, and they basically become just one person. They're not seen without each other, and there's this very symbiotic relationship between the two. So I would say that's kind of like me and Shep. He's the brains. He's telling me where to go, and I'm just this big oaf that kind of takes him from here and there, and he points and says that, and we figure out what he wants, and he wants to go down, we go down. He wants to go see squirrels, we go see squirrels. So I'm going to say Freak the Mighty. Kim from Elmhurst writes, "What's your stance on religion and politics around the kids?" This can obviously be a very, very delicate topic. Without going too far down this rabbit hole, what I would say is my stance is I think it's best to allow a child to choose those sort of things themselves. Having said that, I think it's very hard to bring your child up without exposing them to your beliefs regarding those things. And I don't really think it's realistic to ask a parent not to, not to talk about their beliefs or not to have that be part of their life. I just think that, it's important that if you're going to raise your child, say Catholic, because I was raised Catholic, that you are, giving them at least some idea of what else is out there, and not necessarily in a disparaging way. In a perfect world, I think you kind of, explain, hey, there's lots of religions, and people choose to believe one or the other, and that doesn't necessarily make them better or the other. And at some point, you're going to grow up, and you could choose to be part of the religion that your mom and dad have been part of, or you can choose one of these other ones, or you could choose not to be religious. A little kid is going to want to be part of what their parents are doing. That's just natural, and that's why, you don't see a lot of, families practicing multi-religions. But, I think that's, in a perfect world, the best approach. If you are religious practicing family. Now, I will just say full disclosure, we're not. Neither my wife or I are religious. So, for us, it's a lot easier to kind of take the approach of saying, well, here's this, and here's that, and here's this, and here's that. And you can choose whichever one, you feel a deepest connection to, should you feel a deep connection to one of those. Politics, again, I think that a kid will naturally kind of figure out what their parents gravitate towards politically, and they're going to early on naturally probably mimic a lot of those beliefs. But as a parent, I just think it's important, and I do have political leanings, and I'm for sure going to be, or try to be, conscious of, pointing out the other side and, some of the drawbacks to my beliefs and some of the benefits to the other side, and making sure that, they're getting both sides as much as possible. It's a tough thing to do, but I think, it's important to make sure that your kid sees that, you're not a straight line thinker, and that, you do consider things from both sides. And I think that carries over to a lot of things in life. And then this question, the final question, this was asked by quite a few people, and they said, what's the status of getting Papa Pappas on the show? That's going to happen. We're definitely going to have him on. There are some talks about a potential reoccurring segment featuring him that might appear in future episodes. So please keep tuning in. You will hopefully be rewarded with a nice little Papa Pappas segment that, as I said, not sure if it's going to be every episode, every other episode, or how we do that, but trying to work something out with him for that. So that's some exciting news for our listeners and watchers. And that will be it for today. Those were some good emails. I hope that some of the people that listen and watch will continue to send those in. We'll see. I will either try to get them into the next progress report episode, or maybe we'll just do another episode like this where we just do a short little mailbag, get the majority of the questions answered, and just do it like that. So really appreciate the people who have been listening and lent me their support, whether it be through messages or texts or phone calls, or however those have come through. Means a lot. Let's keep this thing going. I will mention that so far, New Dad has got as high as 83 on the charts for parenting podcasts. That's in large part thanks to you guys who have been rating and reviewing and subscribing to the podcast through Apple iTunes or Stitcher or whatever, Spotify. So please, if you haven't done that, do that. Rate, review, subscribe. Check out New Dad's Facebook group. Go to our Instagram page. And as always, you can email me at newdadpod@gmail.com. Thank you very much. I love you all. Proud cause. Take us away.